Welcome to this segment of the Baer Faxt Live from Art Basel Miami Beach, brought to you by Heritage Auctions, where history is discovered, sold, and made every day. So bid on their thoughtfully curated selection of contemporary artworks at ha.com. So now we're joined for our third segment by one of my favorite ex-auction house people, and they're also great when they leave the auction house, Gabby Palmieri, who's a world-class art advisor and mostly football fan. So it's like a shout out to the Jets in case they ever come back. Welcome, Gabby.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So it's 4 hours in the fair. You've bought how many things?
A lady would never tell such details.
You want to buy and tell?
I won't buy and tell. No, exactly.
Well, did you buy anything for your clients?
We are thoughtfully looking at some works.
Do you like this whole PDF before the art fair, look at it, reserve it for the first hour, kind of new tradition in the last few years?
You know, I understand the need. I understand the need for this to happen because, you know, galleries want to have interest. But what I'm feeling about those advanced PDFs that kind of bombard one's inbox and you're trying to get through them in order to identify the works that you think your clients might be interested in, I'm beginning to feel that those advanced PDFs are almost akin to what third-party guarantees are at auction. You have to do all of this before the actual auction takes place. And I think that it works for certain clients, but clients who want to stand in front of a work and really want to experience it, it's a tough, it's
Well,
it's
you
tough.
missed the chance to walk in the first hour and say, I love it, and
buy it.
And buy it.
That I've come all this way and like water's everywhere and nothing to drink.
On the other hand, it's, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like to read the PDFs. I think for the top art advisors, if you're really doing your job, then that artist, you should be offered that before and after the fair by the gallery more often, right?
I think so. I think that, you know, yes. But I mean, look, there are, I'm not even just speaking of the ex-auction house alumni association, which I belong to. There are some really great advisors out there, and I think we're all looking at similar material. And so I think in one way, it's an ability for the dealer, you know, the dealers to kind of make sure that they are also positioning themselves to do sales and get them sold and have that almost like relief before the fair opens.
I think the dealers would like to go back to the old way of standing in the booth or standing in the gallery. Whenever you go to the gallery and you bring a client and you spend an hour looking at books, I think the best dealers, they enjoy that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they're running this business that needs to happen in 30 seconds here. It's like this urgency. Do your clients feel the urgency from fairs and auctions to buy?
I think my clients feel, they don't necessarily feel the urgency to buy at a fair. And maybe part of it is because exactly that. We've been looking at these artists, we've bought them, or we're kind of coming down here to learn about new artists. We're not necessarily coming down here to buy. I think the urgency we feel at auction, you know, at least there, you're like, are we, you know, there really is that timestamp.
That's interesting that you talk about a way to get new information, because I find the art fair to be a terrible place for me to find new things, because there's 10,000 images, and and generally they're salon style, and you're seeing one of something as opposed to seeing a show. So how do you figure out how to get new things to look at? What goes into that? Wow, let's look at that more.
I think you make a really good point. I think the time that we spend looking at artist programs that we really like, and we do so much.
You're saying the galleries, with all
like
that
programs,
about
yeah.
Which gallery does the most interesting thing?
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, there is for certain collectors, you know, you kind of, you know, and I have the great benefit of many of the collectors I've worked with have worked with me since I was a puppy at Sotheby's, right? So I've known them since 2003 and 4 and 5 and whatnot. And I kind of know their rhythms. I know what we've been looking at for years and years. And I think that certain programs really do speak to that. And we have we kind of are a little bit more insular. However, I use this less to say we're going to race to this one booth, because I feel that's where you miss things. When you race to this one booth because you've had this on hold and we have to make a call and here taking the time leisurely walking through each one saying we didn't know about this gallery, we didn't know about your program. We use this much more as like, and I'm not saying because it's Miami, Nina Pinta, Santa Maria style, we use this as kind of the land of discovery. And maybe we're different in that way.
Are you with clients today?
I am.
So how does that feel walking around a fair with a client?
It's kind of like, I always had this joke about art fairs, and it's really the truth, is that I felt like it was an occupational hazard, because I felt like if you see something, say something, because there's just so much you can cover when you have multiple clients down here. And yet I think today is a great example of spending particular time with one collector and catching things that I never thought that they would like. I never thought that they would respond to. And that's been so much fun today, to be honest.
I find when I bring a client, it's like the flop sweat is constant, and that you have to say something intelligent in every booth, which is impossible to do, but that's sort of their expectation, and I find it really challenging.
I want to follow you around a fair.
Well, I'll tell you a rule.
We go next?
Yeah, can I hire you? Or do you want to hire me?
We'll have like a mutual, exactly, okay.
Yeah, you're my art advisor now.
Perfect, he's my art advisor. Perfect.
I think that I have a rule for my clients. They don't necessarily do it. It's like when you're in somebody's booth on opening day, you may not talk to them about your kid's bar mitzvah, where they went to college. The only thing you're allowed to talk to the dealer about is if you're interested in buying it.
So you don't have a lot of Latin clients.
So I don't have any.
Who are like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Divino, ¿qué tal? Tu pelo, espectacular.
Exactly. It's like, aren't they looking over their shoulder like, yes or no, better dealing you, or maybe I think the hallways, when you get out of that space by like 1 inch, then you can talk to people.
But kudos to the fair for really actually expanding those hallways, because I feel like even though I think the one observation has been that it feels a little bit quieter this year, even from the moment you were there at 10:45 walking in, I would say that I think it's the spaciousness post-pandemic that has also given the kind of flow of the fair to kind of like, before you were really bumping up against people and you couldn't take a step back, especially if you were looking at something in a booth that was of considerable demand with multiple people and multiple holds behind you. Here, I feel like you've got a little bit more breathing room.
Yeah, I have the feeling that it's where there were 3, last year there would have been 5 reserves. Today there's 3 reserves, and maybe the first 1 or 2 said no. So at the end of the day, the artwork is still sold, but it's just like a little bit less of the hysteria. Would you say that that's an accurate feeling?
I think it is. It's like hashtag nailed it. I mean, I think it is a direct corollary to what we saw in, 3 weeks ago in the auctions, that there was much more of a deliberate pause. Things were going to sell. I think the auction results surprised us all across the board. However, it was not as frothy, and that's not a bad thing. It's to say that, we still have how many hundreds of exhibitors, how many thousands of works of art are in this building, and the fact that if you even have a cruising altitude of 70 to 80% like sell-through rates, find homes. I mean, this is a robust, still enthusiastic market that has come here to, buy art.
And my other theory as an advisor is, if they don't want to buy, they're not coming. But if they come, they really find it hard to walk out without buying something. Would you agree with that with your clients?
100%. I think that the clients who opted out to come this year were for a host of different reasons, not just because we're not buying anything else or we bought too much or anything. They just said, I'm going to sit this out for any host of reasons. But I will say that everyone who came down here do feel that like pay to play. Like I'm here and I want to just, even if I walk away with a little something, maybe I'll buy something for my kids or whatever.
So I find that pull, it's like, thank God they're not here. And it's like, now I can really look and I go, oh crap, I can't sell anything if they're not here, because the process of discovering something, then calling somebody up and sending the PDF and waiting for them to get it home, that just doesn't work very well.
Could we do
does it?
something like in the auctions where, like, we would be looking at similar things? So do you want, would we
Well, the last 2 times I was bidding at auction, once for me and once for a client, it's like I'm raising my hand and there goes Gabby again. And her arms are stronger than my little weak arm. Like, I'll go double the estimate. There's Gabby triple. So I do hate you.
It was just because of me at school. It's like, I knew the answer. So, my hand gets up pretty quickly. I'm not going to lie.
Like the good stuff's kind of obvious, right? It wasn't like, were there any surprises at the auctions?
Surprises at the auctions? I absolutely think so. I think that you saw, I was happy to see a lot of bidding depth, I think, in a sale where you thought there would be a lot of fatigue, in that kind of Sotheby's, Chara Schreier day sale where there was some really wonderful material.
There was one that I thought was great that didn't go well that I tried to get a client to buy. Maybe you bought it. It was the Gilbert and George from the early 70s.
We may have bid on it. We did not get it, but that is hilarious. Yes, we did bid on that for a client.
So if I'd gotten a bid, you would have outbid me again. So
well, we were the bridesmaid.
We
were the bridesmaids, not the bride, on that. But yeah, I mean, we were just looking at these, this wonderful historical material, and we were there. And I think that's the one thing that I will also say about the fair is that if they say it's on reserve, don't give up that hope, because we just got a call where something that we thought was sold. Now, as you just said, they just passed, and we kind of hung in there. And it's the same thing about kind of, I think, showing up at the auctions and saying, oh, it's going to go high, and then no one else raises their hand or doesn't raise it fast enough.
I remember a story from the Chicago Art Fair back when it was the major art fair, and there was some work, and 2 major collectors were talking. They said, oh, I didn't get it, but I had the second reserve. And another one said, well, I didn't get it either, and I had the second reserve. And they looked at each other. It's like, well, that's not possible. And they got angry. It's like, because you couldn't both be second to somebody else who bought it. And it's like 2 of the biggest collectors in Chicago, and they stopped dealing with that gallery. They didn't like it. So you have to be careful how you say, oh, there's one person in front of you. It's like, you're probably going to see the person who bought it at dinner that night. Mm-hmm. Or the person who outbids you.
Or you're going to be passing them the salt, correct.
Passing them salt, mm-hmm. Is that a Jewish expression that I'm missing?
No, I mean, I just think it's so true. I mean, you're seeing this over and over again, and it's something that we have belabored both as kind of colleagues in this space, as friends in this space, having someone, I'm just saying, listen, it's just the art world. It is, if you are not honest and forthcoming, it is not a question of if, it's just going to be a question of when, it is sort of revealed. So
yeah, sure. Last question as we wind up, is there any sort of general notion of what's going on in the market in terms of what kind of art you're interested in the market seems to be showing, or what you feel like on the floor, that minimum is back because we're in person, or whatever, the African diaspora or whatever? Is there any sort of pattern you're making out?
I think this is actually the first fair where and I'm happy for anyone else to say it a bit different. I think that we've always seen the fair, or often in the last few years, seen the fair be kind of almost like your first responder to the November results, right? And I think that since the sales were so mixed, and I don't mean mixed in necessarily just prices, but I think mixed in the different material that was on offer between the different estates, or between, a really wonderful, Christie's auction of putting together single works and of really extraordinary caliber. I think that this became a kind of almost free-for-all Miami, because I don't see any themes and trends that you would have seen where before we saw these speculated artists, and so you were expecting to see many of them in the booths. I think there is a bit more of a, where I don't, or maybe I haven't gotten that far, because my name is Gabby for a reason, and I am the chatty person that would be your nightmare client, so I think you've just fired me. But I think that I'm not seeing as much historical material, but what I am seeing are interesting booths that have been well thought out or interestingly designed, especially with booths that have secondary material. So it's not just like dedicated, like the beautiful booth at, I'm thinking just a dedicated booth of Emma Webster at Periton, for example. But looking at what people did, I think that this kind of might be the fair that gave everyone a little bit more chance to kind of like spread their wings a little bit versus kind of the obvious, let's all bring this one artist down.
Okay, well, that's like, I'm going to think about that when I go back in the fair. And thank you for watching the Baer Faxt live from Art Basel Miami Beach. This time brought to you by Turon Travel, the art world's travel specialist, who've been facilitating travel to the world's art fairs for over 40 years. I know, I've been with them. Head to turontravel.com to get your discounted flights, hotel rooms, and for your next art fair. And thank you, Gabriella.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you.